A very good morning. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra. The big story that we're tracking for you early morning today. News coming in of drone sightings over Munich airport. Munich airport was shut down for a few hours, likely to reopen soon, but as many as 3,000 passengers' schedules have been disrupted. We'll bring you updates on that story on the show this morning. Also on the show, stock markets reopened today after a midweek holiday yesterday on account of Gandhi Jayanti. We will get you an update on whether markets will continue to be in the wait and watch mode, or some preliminary data coming from auto sales during the Navratri season could spike the sentiment on the Dalal Street this morning. And of course, just 6 days to go for the News 9 Global Summit Germany edition in Stuttgart on October 9th. We'll get you a short conversation on what to expect at this mega event. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, the headlines. Munich airport halts flights after multiple drone sightings, cancelling 17 departures and diverting 15 arrivals as Europe remains on high alert following recent drone and airspace incidents. Russian President Vladimir Putin warns US pressure on India and China over Russian energy ties could backfire as Moscow and New Delhi prepare for a high-stakes summit in December focused on defense and trade cooperation. Traveling to the United States has just become more expensive starting this October. A new $250 visa integrity fee has come into effect for all non-immigrant visa applications. Experts warn of a potential hit to tourism and jobs. India and ASEAN to begin their 11th round of talks in Jakarta to review trade pact ahead of October 27th summit, with New Delhi pushing for a more balanced agreement as bilateral trade crosses $123 billion. And despite US imposing 100% tariff on pharmaceutical drugs, India's pharma exports to cross $30 billion by year-end as domestic market and vaccine innovations drive global growth, says Union Minister of State Jitendra Singh. India's electronics components manufacturing scheme receives record 1.15 lakh crore in applications, highlighting strong domestic and global confidence. Projected production over 10 lakh crore rupees. Finance Ministry launches inquiry into Wintrack Inc.'s corruption allegations against Chennai customs officials amid company halting operations, with Mohandas Pai and Shashi Tharoor urging government action. Indigo to resume passenger flights to mainland China from October 26th with daily Kolkata-Guangzhou service. Plans Delhi route soon, boosting trade, tourism as well as international connectivity. And Tesla CEO Elon Musk becomes first person in history to reach $500 billion net worth as Tesla shares surge and Musk returns to company focus on AI and robotics. Germany's Munich airport halted flights after several drone sightings in the late hours of Friday, making the latest drone disruption to European aviation after sightings temporarily shut airports in Denmark and Norway last week. Now, the Munich airport said in a statement that 17 flights departing Munich were cancelled on Thursday night, Friday early morning, affecting nearly 3,000 passengers, and 15 flights due to land were diverted to Stuttgart, Nuremberg, Vienna as well as Frankfurt. Europe has been on high alert in recent weeks due to a string of drone sightings as well as alleged incursions by Russian drones into NATO airspace over Poland and Romania, and the alleged violation of Estonian airspace by Russian fighter jets. Reports indicated that Munich airport was due to resume flight operations at 5:30 a.m. local time. That's about 9 a.m. India time, but no report or confirmation just as yet on whether the shutdown on the Munich airport has been lifted. Russian President Vladimir Putin has swiped back at Donald Trump after the US president labeled Moscow a paper tiger. Now, Putin, speaking at Valdai Forum in Sochi, dismissed Trump's remarks and claimed Russian troops were making gains along Ukraine's front lines. The Russian leader also warned that NATO is almost fully at war with Russia and raised fresh alarms over Washington's military aid.
As for the paper tiger thing, I have already told you that Russia has been fighting not with Ukraine and the Ukrainian armed forces, but with all the NATO countries for all these years. Well, if we are fighting with the entire NATO bloc, we are moving, advancing, and we feel confident, and we are a paper tiger, then what is NATO itself?
I'm going a step further in warning America. Putin said US supplies of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would trigger a whole new level of escalation in Moscow's confrontation with the West. Listen in.
Can Tomahawks harm us? They can. We'll be shooting them down and improving our air defense systems. Will this damage our relations with the US, which are now seeing some light at the end of the tunnel? Of course it will. But how could it be otherwise? Using Tomahawks without the direct participation of American military personnel is impossible. This would mark a completely new, qualitatively new stage of escalation, including in relations between Russia and the United States.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has also launched a sharp attack on Washington's pressure tactics. Now, speaking at the Forum of Russia experts, Putin criticized US efforts to push India and China into cutting energy ties with Moscow. He warned such moves could backfire by driving up global oil prices, keeping US interest rates higher for longer, and ultimately slowing down the American economy. Putin also underlined that India and China, in his words, will not allow themselves to be humiliated. The remarks come ahead of Putin's likely visit to India on December 5th and 6th for the annual summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, this will be his first trip to India since the Ukraine war began in February of 2022. The visit also takes place in the backdrop of what Moscow calls the weaponization of tariffs by the Trump administration, with Russia offering greater market access to Indian exporters hit by US duties. Remember, India has consistently stressed that its policy is guided by strategic autonomy and national interest, while maintaining time-tested ties with Russia as a pillar of Indian foreign policy. Officials point out that the India-Russia partnership remains a stabilizing factor in Eurasia, balancing big power ambitions. At the upcoming 23rd summit, Modi and Putin are expected to focus on defense, energy, agriculture, as well as trade. Key discussions include Russia's offer of Su-57 fighter jets with a 70% transfer of technology, India's quest for additional S-400 systems, and potential cooperation on the more advanced S-500 missile defense system as well. Naval equipment and nuclear energy cooperation will also be on the table. And traveling to the United States has just become more expensive. From this October, a new $250 visa integrity fee has come into effect for all non-immigrant visa applicants. So what does it impact? Well, the extra charge applies to those seeking tourist or business visas, student visas, work permits, and exchange visitor visas. And it specifically affects applicants from countries outside the US Visa Waiver Program. Now, this includes countries like India, China, Brazil, as well as Argentina. For Indian travelers, the cost of a visitor visa now climbs to around $442 or nearly 40,000 rupees, making it one of the most expensive visas in the world. The visa integrity fee was introduced under the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill passed in July this year. US officials say the money will be used to strengthen vetting and integrity checks. The fee is technically refundable, but only under narrow conditions. For example, if someone leaves the US within 5 days of their visa expiring. For long-term visa holders like students and professionals, the refund process is expected to be complex with long waiting times as well as multiple checks. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the fee will generate as much as $2.7 billion annually for the United States. And despite the US imposing a 100% tariff on pharmaceutical drugs from October 1st, India is confident its pharma exports will continue to grow. Union Minister of State for Science and Technology Jitendra Singh said that India's exports, currently valued at nearly $27.8 billion, are expected to cross $30 billion by the end of this year. Now, speaking at a keynote address in the capital, Singh underlined India's strong global position in the pharma industry. Looking ahead, the minister projected India's domestic pharma market will more than double from the current $60 billion to about $130 billion by the year 2030. He highlighted that India's vaccine success has transformed global perceptions. Once dismissed as a marginal player in healthcare, India is now seen as a leader in preventive medicine. Singh pointed to India's landmark achievements in developing the world's first DNA vaccine for COVID-19, with doses now supplied to over 200 countries. The minister stressed that India enjoys an advantage over many countries because its pharma industry is highly diversified, not confined to allopathy alone. The trade negotiations from India and the 10-nation ASEAN bloc will meet in Jakarta starting Monday to push forward the long-running review of their goods trade pact. Officials say progress has been made, but a final deal is still some distance away. The Jakarta round will be the 11th in the review process. Leaders at the ASEAN-India summit on October 27th in Kuala Lumpur will be briefed on the progress and may give further directions too. The review of the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement is being led by a joint committee supported by 8 specialized subcommittees. Now, these cover areas such as customs procedures, legal and institutional issues, market access, rules of origin, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, standards and technical regulations, as well as trade remedies. For India, this review holds special significance. The country's industry has long demanded an upgraded pact to fix asymmetries in trade. India hopes the new agreement will make trade more balanced, fair, as well as sustainable. ASEAN is among India's most prominent trade partners, accounting for about 11% of New Delhi's global trade. Bilateral trade touched $103 billion in 2024-25, but the balance is tilted. India exported just $39 billion worth of goods, while imports stood at more than $84 billion. Remember, the free trade agreement with ASEAN was first signed in 2009 and came into force in 2010. Both sides agreed last year to complete a full review by the year 2025. India's Electronics Components Manufacturing Scheme, or ECMS, has received a record 1.15 lakh crore worth of investment applications, nearly double its original target, reflecting strong domestic and global confidence in India's electronics manufacturing capabilities. Launched on May 1st, 2025 with a fiscal outlay of 22,919 crore rupees, ECMS initially aimed to attract 59,350 crore rupees in investments. Instead, the scheme received 249 proposals totaling over 1.15 lakh crore rupees worth of investments, highlighting a sharp surge in investor enthusiasm. Now, projected electronics component production under the scheme now stands at over 10 lakh crore rupees over 6 years, more than double the original target. Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav urged state governments to leverage this opportunity and build ecosystems that support electronics manufacturing. Speaking in New Delhi, he highlighted the scheme's employment potential, noting that it is expected to generate 1,42,000 direct jobs, far exceeding the initial target of 91,600, along with a significant number of indirect jobs.
प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पर फोकस है और जो पिछले 11 वर्षों में जो ट्रस्ट डेवलप हुआ है दुनिया भर का भारत पर, ये ट्रस्ट आज इन्वेस्टमेंट में, प्रोडक्शन में और एम्प्लॉयमेंट में परिणत हो रहा है. इट्स रिजल्टिंग इनटू इन्वेस्टमेंट, एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड एक्स्ट्रा प्रोडक्शन. Against a target which was again a very ambitious target we had taken of 59,350 crore rupees investment, we have received applications for 1,15,351 crore. Against a production target of 4,56,500 crore, we have received production estimates 10,34,000 crore. So that is more than double what we had targeted. Employment, we had targeted 91,600 persons. Here the employment which is expected is 1.5 times at 1,41,000 persons employment.
Well, the Finance Ministry has launched a formal inquiry into serious corruption allegations raised by Chennai-based import-export firm Wintrack Inc. against customs officials. A senior Department of Revenue officer has been tasked with conducting a comprehensive, fact-based investigation, including hearing with all concerned parties and a thorough review of relevant documents. The ministry stressed that the matter is being handled with utmost seriousness and reaffirmed its commitment to taking appropriate and expeditious action in accordance with the law while promoting ease of doing business. Well, now this inquiry follows Wintrack Inc.'s announcement that it will cease all import-export operations in India from October 1st, citing harassment by Chennai customs officials. The firm, which facilitates doorstep delivery from China and Thailand e-commerce websites, alleged that customs officials in Chennai retaliated after it exposed alleged bribery practices twice this year. Chennai Customs has categorically denied the allegations, stating that the company has a history of making unsubstantiated claims. The dispute revolves around 8 undeclared boxes of USB cables with built-in rechargeable batteries which require certification from the Central Pollution Control Board. Customs officials noted that despite repeated requests during hearings on August 29, September 8th and September 29th, the firm did not provide the necessary certification. The controversy has sparked debate on social media, with Congress MP Shashi Tharoor calling the situation truly dismaying, saying corruption remains rampant and many companies comply as part of the price of doing business. While Mohandas Pai, chairman of RN Capital, urged Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman as well as Prime Minister Narendra Modi to act, citing systemic corruption at India's ports. Officials say the inquiry will be transparent, thorough and impartial, aiming to establish facts and ensure accountability. Indigo on Thursday announced the resumption of passenger flights to mainland China, a major step in restoring cross-border connectivity. Now, starting October 26 this year, the airline will operate daily non-stop flights between Kolkata and Guangzhou, using its modern Airbus A380 Neo aircraft. Subject to regulatory approvals, Indigo also plans to introduce direct flights between Delhi and Guangzhou in the near future. The airline says these new routes will boost trade, strengthen business ties and promote tourism between India and China, two of the world's fastest growing economies. Tickets for the Kolkata-Guangzhou flights will be available from October 3rd via Indigo's website and mobile app. Indigo highlighted that its pre-pandemic operations in China, along with established local partnerships, will help ensure a smooth and swift resumption. The move is part of the airline's broader strategy to expand its international footprint across Asia, the Middle East and Europe, reinforcing its commitment to global growth. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has become the first person in history to reach a net worth of $500 billion, according to Forbes' real-time billionaires. Musk's wealth, driven primarily by his 12.4% stake in Tesla and rising valuations of his other ventures, crossed the historic milestone. Tesla stock has risen over 14% this year, closing 3.3% higher on Wednesday, adding more than $6 billion to Musk's fortune. Investor confidence surged after Musk returned to the front lines at Tesla following a period of focus at the White House. Recently, Musk also purchased about $1 billion worth of Tesla shares, reinforcing his commitment to the company as it pivots towards AI as well as robotics, further boosting investor sentiment. And there's something else that's valued at $500 billion. OpenAI, the developer of ChatGPT, has reached a staggering valuation of $500 billion following a secondary share sale in which current and former employees sold around $6.6 billion worth of shares to investors. Now, this deal pushes OpenAI well beyond its previous valuation of $300 billion from a SoftBank-led financing round earlier this year, surpassing even SpaceX's $400 billion valuation. More details in this report.
Behind behind ChatGPT has reportedly reached a valuation of $500 billion. It follows a deal in which current and former employees sold roughly $6.6 billion worth of shares. That's according to a source familiar with the matter who told Reuters the news on Thursday. This would represent a bump up from its current valuation of $300 billion and underscores OpenAI's rapid gains in both users and revenue. Reuters reported details of the stock sale earlier in August. As part of the deal, OpenAI employees sold shares to a consortium of investors. They include Thrive Capital, SoftBank and Dragoneer Investment Group, among others, according to the source. They added that the company had authorized sales of $10 billion plus worth of stock on the secondary market. The investment firms involved did not immediately respond to Reuters' requests for comment.
And with that, we will slip into a very short break. Coming up on the other side, Kranti Batini will be here with all the input on Dalal Street as markets have just opened and they've opened in the red. Sensex and Nifty are down about 1/5 of a percentage point. What is the investor sentiment? What are they waiting for and what are they watching out for? We will bring you all the updates on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
Fish disappear. Moonlight.
Smooth, silent, seamless. Sliding systems from headache.
नई गाड़ी लेनी पड़ेगी।
हाँ, हमें भी।
शोरूम खोला जल्दी।
संभल कर। अंदर महंगा इंश्योरेंस बेचने की पूरी कोशिश हो सकती है, जबरदस्ती।
कौन करेगा जबरदस्ती? फोड़ दूंगा इधर मैं।
रिलैक्स कमलाकर, कोई जबरदस्ती नहीं है। नई गाड़ी के लिए हम एको कार इंश्योरेंस ही लेंगे।
फेयर प्राइस, कम प्रीमियम।
बात खत्म।
बात खत्म।
सर, बात खत्म। अरे सर, बात खत्म। अरे सर।
कार का एक्शन हीरो एको।
Dreaming about me.
Love is to get lost in the look. Unlimit Love. B6 Pact 2 starts at 21.9 lakh. Mahindra Electric Origin SUVs.
मुझसे नहीं हो गया।
उनको देख रहे हो?
क्या संगीत तक ये स्टेप सीख पाएंगे? ये खूबसूरत चिंता आप करिए। शादी के पर्सनल लोन की चिंता हम संभाल लेंगे। With EMI starting at 94 rupees per day and tenure up to 7 years.
You can take a left, you can take a right.
Thank you for having me here.
Is art curation a profession or a passion?
Being an art curator is actually a profession. For me, it's a very personal journey.
The show has brought about a sea change in your life. People want to know more about you.
When I did the show, it was actually an act of defiance.
There are two ways people react to their internal fears. One, go away from it. I think one of the winning attitudes is what you have.
Yeah.
You overcome it.
And I actually had the phobia of the camera till 2018.
Was marriage conducive to your dreams or it came in as an impediment to your dreams?
If I would have not married, I would have not met Karan Johar.
Once you set out to get something, you would leave no stone unturned to get that.
My motivation has always been learning and inner journey. I want to make my own mistakes. I want to learn on my own. I forgot the question.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's bring you all the action from Dalal Street. Markets have opened after a midweek holiday yesterday on account of Gandhi Jayanti, but it seems like somber mood on the markets continues, and investors not really finding any hope as they track their indices every morning. Well, Sensex and Nifty have both opened about 0.2% or so lower, gradually inching up, but pretty much maintaining the levels. Nifty continues to be below the 25,000 mark, in fact even below the 24,800 mark as we speak right now, and Sensex well below the 81,000 levels. Volatility a little higher, but still in acceptable levels of just about 10.5 or so. Meanwhile, better news coming for small cap and mid cap investors. At least the small cap 100 and the mid cap 100 indices are slightly up in trade this morning, up about 0.3% and 0.4% or so. Let's pull up the Nifty 50 heat map, and it looks more or less red, hardly any green shoots visible. It seems that even the numbers that are being reported right now of sales, car sales in the first 8 days of Navratri, not really boosting investor sentiment. Perhaps all the hopes on auto stocks have pretty much paired themselves out with the buying of auto shares and many other shares during the announcement of the GST cut, and pretty much in line with expectations. Maruti Suzuki, Mahindra both seem to be down in trade this morning. Meanwhile, even the IT pact, as always, continues to be marring investors' sentiments. No positive news coming even on the energy front. In fact, Reliance stocks are also down about 0.25 percentage point, despite what we heard from Russian President Vladimir Putin on the fact that India and China may not be pressured into cutting back on their purchases of Russian oil. So overall, no real trend that one can see. The only good news is perhaps emerging from the pharma sector, where the announcement from the government pretty much suggests that the exports of Indian pharmaceuticals to US and to other parts of the world may not really be disrupted too much with the 100% tariff. In fact, some growth visible as far as data from the government goes. So you've got Sun Pharma, Cipla, as well as Dr. Reddy's. The entire Nifty 50 pharma pack looking a little positive this morning. Let's get an expert view. We've got Kranti Bhatini joining us this morning, equity strategist at Wealth Mill Security. Good morning, Kranti. Pleasure having you back with us here on News 9. Just tell us, are markets waiting for something? Are markets really trying to understand all that's happening in the world? What's really going on? Because it's very hard to find a direction one way or another, positive or negative, in the markets right now.
Yeah, Karthik, you're absolutely correct. The headline indices have been in a consolidation phase. The follow-on buying is not coming at the higher end of the market, that is above around 25,500. But 25,000 level is a psychological and a sentimental level for the market. As long as the market is below 25,000 level, you can see some kind of a subdued activity in the markets in the medium to short term. Market have expected some kind of a rate cut, but in somewhere or the other, some relaxation of the norms for lending in terms of the IPOs and also the infrastructure lending is concerned, RBI could able to deliver some kind of a solace to the industry. But there was a lot of impetus on the market with respect to MPC is concerned. There would be a rate cut between 25 to 50 basis points. That's where the anticipation from the street. But the rate cut we have not witnessed. But the commentary is quite positive. Okay, they are in a wait and watch mode, and if in the next subsequent, they have not ruled out any kind of a rate cut in the upcoming monetary policies that is going to be scheduled in the month of December around. So at this point of time, by and large, the market sentiment is neutral at this point of time. Still, the global tariffs and geopolitical issues have been weighing on the market. The foreign portfolio investors continue to be the net sellers at this point of time. So this is the reason the headline indices are in a consolidation phase. But majority of the action is in sectors and stocks at this point of time. You need to be a real stock picker in these kind of markets. Last 1 year have been to make any kind of a good quality returns in this kind of market.
Stay with us. We also have Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman speaking live right now at the at the Kautilya Economic Conclave 2025 on the theme of seeking prosperity in turbulent times. I think let's just listen in to what the Finance Minister has to say before we come back to you.
A contested equilibrium allowed nations to pursue prosperity through integration and interdependence. That equilibrium has inevitably been upended, and the rules of international engagement are being rewritten, stating that the present is turbulent in some sense would be an understatement. The scale of the challenge which is in our hand is rather too big, so we will be understating the scale of the challenge at hand. What we face is not a temporary disruption, but a structural transformation. The question, therefore, is, and this is something on which I will request the gathering to ponder and come out with some answers, because none of what I'm going to say are answers to the problem which are in our hand. But problem exists and we'll have to find solutions. So the question is, what lies on the other side of this transformation? If indeed this uncertainty, if indeed this not temporary disruption, but indeed the uncertainty is a structural transformation. And I would like to put it in that, in those words. And if indeed it is structural transformation, what lies on the other side? What will the new equilibrium look like? And who will shape it? And on what terms will it be shaped? These questions are not easily answered, as this equation has to be taking into consideration very many variables, not just a few, but many variables. Shifts that
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman there speaking at the Kautilya Economic Conclave and really mentioning all the uncertainty in the world that we are seeing right now, not being a temporary phase but a structural change, a structural transformation. Kranti, what do you make of Finance Minister's latest comments that we just heard? She's talking about the disruptions, the uncertainty in the global world, and of course we are discussing it pretty much every day on what's happening in the US and what's happening everywhere else in the world. The fact that these may not really be temporary disruptions but could be structural transformations. What are your views on this?
Yeah, Karthik, there is definitely a change in the structure of the way the world has been going through. The system has been changing. It's more about the introvert and protectionism has been going up, and the countries like the US, where the democratic country and a free economy is having such a kind of a tariffs is changing the complete order of the world. That's where the policymakers across the globe, they have been concerning at this point of time, and they have to align with the changes in the structural changes. So whenever these alignment comes in, there would be turbulence would be there. That's what the finance minister has been addressing at this point of time. That's what the title also, seeking prosperity during the turbulent times. So we are going through that phase, and we have been witnessing those kind of a turbulent phase in India also at this point of time. We need to see the real impact of this turbulence and the tariffs in the next coming quarters. But by and large, we are, if you ask me, Kranti, we are insulated. Some part of the sectors have been insulated, but still we are vulnerable for these kind of turbulence across the globe. The friction we are facing at this point of time.
Right. I want to pick up some sectors this morning with you, Kranti, and of course in the context of turbulence that Finance Minister is also speaking about. The pharma sector seems to have at least recovered now from the initial pain that we heard late last week with the 100% tariff that was imposed, and the data and the sort of projections coming from the government at this point suggesting that we could indeed be touching about $30 billion worth of exports to the US, up from $27.5 billion. So the pharma sector may actually see growth in exports to the US, and even overall the pie of India's pharma exports seems to be increasing. So are those initial jitters that we saw late last week now pretty much set to an end, and is this pretty much, you know, the end of the worst that we've seen for the pharma sector?
Karthi, I don't rule out, okay, President Trump is Trump, okay, the nature of his policy making is completely uncertain always, but right now, whatever be the tariff they could able to impose, it's more on the branded because of the Indian pharmaceutical sector is by and large the generic. So the impact is minuscule. There is absolutely no impact at this point of time. But if the Trump administration goes on generics, that's going to have a major blow on Indian pharmaceutical sector. But I don't think so. He is going to go any kind of tinkering with respect to the generic medicines are concerned. But the Trump is Trump. Okay, his administration. They could able to do any kind of changes in the coming days. So the industry is crossed their fingers how it's going to be. But there are some kind of a segment. There are chronic, non-chronic, critical and non-critical. So there can be a section of differences with respect to the branded and generic medicines are also concerned. So, right. But always the industry has to get ready for any kind of impositions from comes from the this administration.
Right. I agree with you on both the counts, in fact, Kranti. The fact that that perhaps there could be something that Trump does, Trump being Trump, he does something on the generics as well. But I also understand that it would not really be in the interest of American citizens if Absolutely. There was a further tax imposed on the generic drugs category as well. I will quickly also touch upon the FMCG defensive pact here. And the defensive pact really seems to be playing on the defensive and perhaps waiting for the 25 basis point cut that never happened. But overall, despite the GST cut, despite all the momentum on India's consumption that we keep talking about, the FMCG pack also, at least this week, has largely been in the negative. What is driving the investors away from this defensive pack right now?
Karthik, yeah, you are absolutely correct. Okay, they have been in a consolidation phase, then subdued performance in the medium to short term, despite of the big announcement and euphoric mood of the FMCG space is concerned. The initial update that came from Hindustan Unilever, the business updates, what they have been mentioning is with respect to the GST cuts are concerned, that's not, they are in a wait and watch mode in the initial stage. That was the reason the business impact is on a positive note. The initial phase is very less. That's where the market is slightly concerned how this GST reduction is going to have a incremental impact on the sales growth is concerned. So this is the commentary that has been weighing on the FMCG sector in the medium to short term. But we can expect, coupled with the GST reduction and also the festive season is concerned, most probably that the entire this euphoria has to transform into revenues. That's where the street has been waiting. But by and large, they are insulated at this point of time. We can expect some kind of a positive performance in the next coming quarters.
Right. Thank you so much for all those inputs. As always, Kranti, pleasure having you here with us. Let's quickly cut back to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who is still speaking at the Kautilya Economic Conclave.
Borrowing costs. Between the demands of productive investments and the temptation of financialization, these trade-offs define our options. They're not easily resolved, yet they cannot be ignored. These trade-offs are accentuated in a world with trends desiring and with trends towards de-risking, decoupling, and hence slowing globalization. Globalization, economic integration, and immigration are not natural states of affairs. They can unravel under pressure as they have in the past. Today, we find ourselves in a shifting global landscape that resembles a zero-sum approach, in part, a consequence of the failures and limitations of the era of globalization that preceded it. So overlaying these in a world of profound imbalances, trade imbalances have hollowed out industries in some nations while creating overcapacity in others. Financial imbalances have concentrated wealth in speculative sectors while depriving the real economy of investment. Energy imbalances have made some societies chronically dependent on costly imports, even as others subsidize their industries with cheap, carbon-intensive power. Net zero commitments pursued with regard to trade-offs risk driving up costs for developing economies while constraining their growth. These imbalances have become structural features of our world, distorting incentives, fueling political discontent, and so on. So the task before us, therefore, is not simply to manage uncertainty, but to confront imbalances. We must ask ourselves, how can we build a global order where trade is fair, finance serves productive ends, energy is both affordable and sustainable, and climate action aligns with development imperatives? How can international institutions be reformed to reflect today's realities rather than yesterday's hierarchies? And crucially, how can the voices of developing nations, no longer marginalized in rulemaking, be amplified in shaping the future? The choices we face are stark, and already we see efforts to reimagine the global financial system itself. Innovations like
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman there speaking at the Kautilya Economic Conclave 2025, really talking about structural transitions that the world is going through and not just temporary imbalances. Well, with that, we will slip into another short break, but before that, all the global stories that we are tracking for you this morning. Germany's second busiest airport, Munich, reopens after temporary suspension due to multiple drone sightings. Nearly 3,000 passengers hit by late-night disruption on Thursday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urges NATO to act after cross-border incursions into European Union, offers Kyiv's battlefield expertise to help defend allies. Russian President Vladimir Putin declares NATO almost fully at war with Moscow, raises fears over expanded US military aid to Ukraine. Putin accuses Ukraine of conducting strikes around the occupied nuclear power plant, warns Moscow may respond reciprocally. US President Donald Trump steps up pressure on Democrats as 750,000 workers face furloughs. White House warns cuts could soon turn permanent. President Donald Trump declares armed conflict with drug cartels. His administration notifies Congress after recent strikes on boats off Venezuela. US Treasury Scott Bessent promises substantial support to farmers as soybean growers feel the heat amid Trump's trade war with China. US regulators approve additional generic version of abortion pill mifepristone, a move angering anti-abortion activists across America. Two people killed and 3 critically injured after a car drives into a crowd following a stabbing attack outside a synagogue near Manchester, UK on the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur. Cops call it terror attack. These stories on the other side of the break. You're watching News 9.
व्यू मस्त है और चाय भी बुरी नहीं है।
नए घर में चाय के मजे कहाँ लोगे? ये खूबसूरत चिंता आप करिए। होम लोन की चिंता हम संभाल लेंगे विद अट्रैक्टिव इंटरेस्ट रेट्स एंड इंस्टेंट सैंक्शन।
You can take a left, you can take a right. Add a little salsa or a little jive. If you really feel it, say it on price. It's the vibe, it's the vibe, it's the vibe.
क्वालिटी पे इतना कॉन्फिडेंस, इसीलिए बिरला ऑफिस अश्योरेंस। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे। रजिस्टर करो birlaoffice.com पर।
थक गए भाई छोटू, कहीं नहा धो के थोड़ा आराम कर ले।
पर कहाँ रुकेंगे?
मैं बताऊं, चलें?
अरे संजू जी आप?
इंडियन ऑयल स्वागत पेट्रोल पंप, जहाँ मिलेगी खाने की, पीने की, नहाने की, कपड़े धोने की, आराम करने की सुविधाएं और सीसीटीवी मॉनिटरिंग से सेफ पार्किंग भी। फिर डीजल, ऑयल और ट्रकों के टायर्स में हवा भरने की सुविधा, ये सब तो है ही। स्वागत है हैप्पी जर्नी की रेसिपी।
Mumbai, brace yourself. The goat or Macross satire is back. Cyrus Roja. From politics to pop culture, from your WhatsApp forwards to breaking news, nothing and no one is safe.
Relax, guys, relax. I only roast the truth, and the truth is always hilarious. Too much pressure.
Get ready for news caustic, bold, sharp, unfiltered, 100% Cyrus.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9, and well, it's time to actually start the countdown. Well, we have started the countdown already, and it's just 6 days to go for the News 9 Global Summit to be held in Stuttgart. Let's tell you all that the News 9 Global Summit is about. And for all those of our regular viewers who have been watching News 9 for at least a year, you know that our News 9 Global Summit Germany edition is an annual affair. And this year, the second edition of the Germany Summit will be held in Stuttgart on October 9th and 10th. And well, this year, we also have a much wider scope. News 9 Global Summit has become Pan-Germany. So we are indeed going to multiple cities across the country, starting all the way from Berlin on Monday, followed by Munich on Tuesday, Karlsruhe on Wednesday, and then finally Thursday, October 9th, the big day when the grand finale, the mega conclave, the News 9 Global Summit Germany edition kicks off in Stuttgart. Well, as always, we will be joined by industry captains as well as policy makers who will converge on brainstorming sessions on how best to take forward the India-Germany trade relations, and especially coming at the heels of the India-EU FTA, which just yesterday Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said is likely to be signed by the month of December. It's also the 25th year of strategic partnership between India and Germany, and that is going to be on display at the News 9 Global Summit. Now, what do we have in terms of content at the News 9 Global Summit? Well, the themes this year are as relevant as they can be, and this is something that we just heard Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman also talk about, the disruptions in trade caused by United States. So one of the biggest panels that we have in store for you on October 9th is around free trade agreements as well as tariff wars. The India-Germany advantage. What are those advantages that India and Germany can play to their strengths on? Well, joining us this morning is somebody who you would see in Stuttgart as well with us. We have Mr. Suchanand Shukla, Group Chief Economist at Larsen & Toubro, joining us this morning. Sachidanand Shukla, good morning. Thank you so much for your time. We are looking forward to meeting you in person in Germany as well. But first up, we just heard Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman saying that the disruptions, the uncertainties which are being caused in the world may not be temporary, but could be structural transformations. Your opening thoughts, sir, on what is it that India and Germany can do together to aid the India-EU FTA and thereafter, of course, make a bridge which has the potential to offset all the uncertainty and the disruptions that we are seeing in the world?
Thank you, and looking forward to the summit. And as we know, the global trade architecture and rules of the game are being upended as we speak. Economic warfare is the new normal, and the world is now engaged in a scramble for economic security that is redrawing the geopolitical maps and is ending globalization as we know it. And in this context, if you look at India-Germany trade and commerce relationship, I think it has got a significant potential for growth, and it can be driven by the shared values. We have significant, scope in terms of market access, trying to reorient resilient trade policies, and India and Germany can leverage on each other's strengths and promote innovation, tech transfer, and the two countries can actually shape the next era of global commerce and promote mutual growth and development. As far as what can be done, I think because Germany is India's largest European trade partner and the 9th overall, and there is significant traction already, I think things that can be worked upon are enhanced market access. We can work on crafting resilient trade policies. We can work on innovation and technology and foster strategic partnerships between the corporates and the businesses of both the countries. Back to you.
Mr. Shukla, I have another question for you, and this is around the potential stumbling blocks that could act as impediments to both trade as well as potentially the FTA from coming through. One, of course, happens to be the fact that India continues to buy Russian oil, and that is something which has become something of, what one could call perhaps a bone of contention, not just with the US, but also with the European Union. So that seems to be like one stumbling block that could hint the India-EU FTA. And the second one could also be the CABM or the carbon tax, and that may impact India's exports to Europe. Are these two really big stumbling blocks as you see it, or do you think India can, with all its might and the common interest of India and EU, tide over these potential stumbling blocks?
So like I said, this is an era where there is economic warfare that is on. We don't know as we speak whether it is just the Russian oil which is a problem. Is it India or India's buying of Russian oil which is a bigger problem, or is it Russia that is the bigger thing that the US policies are trying to tackle? I think we don't have very clear answers. Is it India's trade policies? Is it only buying oil? And until and unless we are able to really have a handle on that, it will be very difficult to argue either ways. And the second part of your question, you said oil and the other bit, sorry, I lost that reference. Could you just repeat that? So oil definitely is a stumbling block. CBAM, of course, has been a bone of contention for a fairly long period of time. But I think what I would want to say at this point in time is that the policymakers, businesses have been actually attuned to tackling this problem, and I'm sure going forward we'll find ways of resolving both of these issues. But as we speak, these remain stumbling blocks in the progress going forward.
All right, Mr. Shukla, you're talking about policy makers as well as businesses, and we will have a whole galaxy of those, and of course you as well speaking at that mega conclave. So thank you so much for your input on that very important story, and we will see you in Germany. And to all our viewers, next week is the big week when the News9 Global Summit Germany Edition 2025 kicks off. So stay tuned to News9.
football is our culture. Match days turn into festivals. Every goal ignites the crowd. Strangers become family.